It's exactly 9 a.m. in the studios of Classic 105.5 and 105.9 on the FM band. A special and a warm and wonderful Friday morning to you for today, the 10th day of the month of June. Indeed, we say thanks to our listeners. We say good morning and welcome to our viewers that's just joining us on television. That's GBN Channel 7, Channel 11, Channel 20 for those of you that's on cable, and a special good morning to those of you joining us via the different social media platforms, be it Facebook, YouTube, or together with those on the World Wide Web at www.gbn.gd. This is To The Point, and I'm Joseph Cadore. My guest this morning is the president of the Grenada Union of Teachers, Jude Bartholomew. Good morning, Jude. How are you? Welcome to the program.
Yes, good morning to the Honorable Joseph Cadore. It's wonderful to be here and wonderful again to join the GBN family, wherever people may be virtually. Good morning to our dear teachers and public officers and all those who are listening through the various media. And before we just go further, I just ask Almighty God to bless the program with the gift of His Holy Spirit and empower us to do justice to the program in Jesus' name.
Amen. And I do promise you that the title that the pronouncement you've blessed me as honorable, I will carry it with all due respect and humility. I can't always say that those who carry it on a more frequent basis, that they all do the same. But there's a lot to be discussed, and certainly the issues, while they're ripe and they're in front of our eyes, they become a little bit more glaring when we get into the political cycle. And certainly as we inch closer to election date, I know the duty continue to articulate the issues that is foremost on the minds, not just you, the executive, but the teaching fraternity collectively. And I know the pension issue, that one, it continues to play itself out. What's the latest on that in that conversation?
Thank you very much for your introduction, which is timely and wisely. So we know as teachers and public officers and the Grenadian public that we have been dealing and battling with this pension issue for a long period of time. We know that it was a real struggle. We know that in 2018, basically, the government agreed to give 70%, which was really and truly injustice to teachers and to public officers. And we decided to take the matter to the courts. And the court has pronounced in our favor, judgment in our favors for teachers and public officers. And we say that this is the day I want to say that the Lord has made for us. And what we thought that when the court make a pronouncement, because there is law and order in a democratic society, and the court has ruled, and so we expected the government of Grenada to basically obey the court order immediately, although the government said that they're going to obey the courts and pay pension. But you're getting different signals from the government of Grenada. Right? They're not coming out clearly to tell you whether or not they're going to pay the constitutionally due pension that the court has made pronouncement and clear ruling on. And that is what we want to know and we want to hear from the government of Grenada. And we desire that payment should be made expeditiously. One time, there is no playing around and daddling around with that. This is a very, very important matter for teachers and public officers, especially at a time now, even before this election. We have been suffering for a long period of time. I mean, if you go back and you think about teachers, you think about nurses, doctors, police officers, prison officers, and other persons in the public service who were sick, suffering, all sort of things. And they had to more or less retire in disgrace, while the politicians, they themselves retire, nicely getting their pension. Can you think about it now, Mr. Cadore, that even now, when Parliament has been prorogued, these ministers of government, they got the $77,000, all of them. About 2 weeks ago, each of them got around that $77,000 to $78,000, and that happens every time there is an election and Parliament is prorogued. So these people, they are getting that all the time. Check off for all these many times that we had election. So these persons, and what is happening, they come out in the public and the politicians tell the nation and try to make the nation believe that teachers and public officers are greedy because they are fighting for what is rightfully theirs and what is rightfully ours. But at the same time, they did not come out and tell the nation that all of them received last week or 2 weeks ago, received the $77,000 each.
And that is an Is that an assumption, or is that is that a known fact on your part?
Yeah, that is a known fact,
Okay.
established fact. And not only that, they have the political pension to get those who would have made the 2 terms. That is ready already, and no question there. So what I want to do this morning is to really touch the hearts of the Grenadian people. Come, let us reason, and to see that injustice, a high level of injustice, is really taking place here. And we're not coming here this morning to decide our yellow or green or anything. Look at the thing from that point of view, from a social and justice economic point of view, to see the great injustice that have been dishing out, not only for pension, but a lot of the things that we're going to discuss. And I say, the signal that we're getting from government. Remember, we had a meeting with the IMF. They did not disclose that information to us, the information that they give the IMF about it. They know the amount of persons who should get pension and everything they know. We wrote to our lawyers for that information. They refused, they did not give us that information. And the government, even on the platform, the political platform, you heard the Prime Minister saying that at 60 years, basically at 60 years, person is going to get a pension. So it leaves doubts in our mind, in workers' mind. Is it that the government of Grenada is going against the ruling of the courts? Because if pension is due, our constitutionally due pension, it is not at age 60, basically. And the interpretation of teachers and public officers and the society as a whole, that the government of Grenada and the Honorable Prime Minister is talking about the 70% that we had previously. And workers rejected that, and we went in the court to basically to deal this matter null and void. So what we want clearly from teachers and public officers and all the young people to come, because we're setting the foundation for them, is the duly constituted pension, or duly constituted 1958 pension, where once you make 26 and 2/3 years in an established position, a permanent job. So as a permanent teacher, 26 and 2/3 years, you're eligible to your pension and your gratuity. In fact, with this ruling from the court, if you make 10 years in an established or permanent position, you are also entitled to pension. So it's not just 26 and 2/3 years, but it opens it up now for persons who make 10 years, for persons who make 20 years, and those areas. And at 50 years, you don't have to wait. This pension ruling from the court has freed us from being slaves. Because you would have been a slave to work. Some teachers, they make 30 years, 40 years public officers, and without this pension and the ruling from the court, you have to go up right up to 60 years if you're sick, if you're dragging and everything. But the ruling from the court now, once you make 26 and 2/3 years in a pensionable position, you can retire with dignity at the age of 50 or whatever, and you'll get your pension and your gratuity.
What sort of conversation or consultations, if ever, have there been between the government and the union since the pronouncement was made?
Well, since the pronouncement was made, we have not really had any discussion with the government, because you see, you is a level of trust, the level of trust. And once you don't have trust, that's trouble. We have been born, bruised and battered in 2018 with this same pension thing. And now we take the matter to the court. What is the discussion about? The court has made the pronouncement and have ruled. So what the government have to come? Yes, we don't mind discussion with the government. But the government of Grenada, what they have to discuss with us is when they're going to pay and how. That's what we want to know. That's not the ruling. When and how, and not all this rigmarole with so many different committees that not doing anything and this package.
Well, let's talk about let's get on to the issue of the committee, because many would argue in any exercise there is what is referred to as due process. In making the pronouncement, the government through the Prime Minister did say that a committee is going to be set up, and that will review and consider the way forward as to how the pension conversation would play out, and that committee would convene, and in 3 months' time, there are those who would argue, why is it that we forcing the issue if a timeline was established?
Well, basically, no timeline. I don't know if that timeline is really valid, or if this timeline for that 3 months is really an exercise in futility because of election around the corner. And so that is the skepticism of it. But what can the committee really come up with? Well, let's say, for example, the committee should study the financial situation and say, well, these persons, based on the situation, they cannot get the due constitutional pension. So that is against the court ruling? So one would want to take it from there that the court has ruled. Yes, whatever the government does, whether they want to have the committee or they want to meet, but what we're waiting on is to get clarity from the government of Grenada when they're going to, start paying the pension and how. And that is what we want.
The government has forwarded the argument that to pay the pension is going to bankrupt the economy forever. Is that an argument that you buy into? And as a union, have you done have you crunched your own numbers, or even suggested a formula as to how the pension conversation should proceed?
No, because we don't really have to. There is precedence in terms of pension payment with the 1958 pension. The government is accustomed to paying pension before 1983. In fact, up to 1985. So they know the formula. They know everything. What they should do is not a new thing that has come in there. All they have to do is to continue. However, one may want to say compare this pension drama about the high cost and bankrupt the economy as a new COVID-19 situation. In fact, that's the new COVID reality that we're dealing with in Grenada.
So this is a smokescreen. You're just saying BS political gimmicks?
Yes, it's a smokescreen and political gimmicks, and we want the public officers, teachers, and the whole nation to examine this thing and to see what really the calculations of the politicians is what is really and truly is in their interest. Because when it comes to monies for their supporters and other persons, when it comes to monies for youth program and other programs, they have it. When it comes to money to buy Grenlec and other things, it never bankrupt. And all the other things that the government does, the only time it's bankrupt is when the workers of this country, teachers and public officers, have to get their monies. So one would want to say, where there is a will, there is a way. And if the government truly want to honor the teachers and public officers and young people that they claim that they love, because let me go a little further, to say to the nation and the young people, the government of Grenada now, you have the politics involved and they're jumping up. We're asking young people to vote and to support us for this election. Don't you know that this pension ruling is not only for teachers and public officers, but it's the foundation that has been set for all the young people who attain the age of 18, who would work, let's say, with the government in a permanent job and those to come. So if the government denies us our Jude pension, the government is also denying the young people to come, the very some young people who they want to vote for them. And that is what young people must be mindful of. Not only just running to say this and the other, but your future, and take all those things into consideration.
Do you think very often, Jude, as part of the ongoing conversation, that the Grenadians, we as a people, we're very myopic in how we view the pension issue, and we make it an argument of the teachers wanting their pension and not necessarily realizing that this goes beyond teachers. This is public workers, your aunts, your uncle, your granddaughter. And as you say, 20 years from now, should we allow it to slide, then is that a precedence we're setting for what may not happen tomorrow?
Absolutely, but who is doing that is the politicians. And the nation always, that's why it seems as Grenadian people, our people, including us, have really short memories. We're very easy to forget. We complain a lot about different issues, regularization, upgrades, pension, dark salary, all the different problems that we have to march on the streets for years to get all the benefits of the workers. Now that the election is clear, people seem to forget all those things and everybody just running and doing wild until after election again, they start complaining about the same issues. So the pension issue is wider than that. It's not only just for teachers, the politicians making it appear that this is only for teachers and public officers. But this pension, what we have done, we take the licks. As the president of the Grenada Union of Teachers, the executive, the teachers who march on the street, public officers from the different unions, we take the shame, the disgrace, the humiliation, all those rejection from government and other persons in the nation to really and truly, we are the sacrificial lamb on the altar for pension. And we sweat blood and tears. And what we have done is not about teachers getting pension, but the foundation that we have set for the youths of the nation, the unborn children, and those to come, that will make sure with this pension ruling, when they reach the age of work, that they too, they will not go through humiliation and disgrace and slavery, that pension will be there for them.
We want to shift from the pension, but before we do that, do you get the sense that to surrender the pension argument and to relinquish whatever efforts is being made, and some have argued that they're becoming wary that our democracy, that which is sacred to us as Grenadians, the rights that is enshrined in the Constitution, that those rights are slowly being taken away from us. Our very freedom is under attack. The democracy that our forefathers have worked so hard to gain, and that which we enjoy today.
And it is very correct what you are saying there, because what you're saying, we claim that we have a democracy, but in our democracy is some real hypocrisy, and that is what is in the system there. So we talk about, we denounce communism, socialist society, but let's say, for example, with what you said there, let's look at Gary. We had a revolution in Grenada with Gary, and persons denounce Sir Eric Matthew Gary. But Sir Eric Matthew Gary is the one that really put that pension day for us in the Constitution, together with other rulers of government. So when you look at it now, problem for regularization, problem for upgrades, there used to be an established order in the public service, where after 2 years, you know, there is a proper protocol that is followed. And so it lessens one going on the street, making noise, demonstrating, and having to go through all these sort of shenanigans for your benefits, when that wasn't happening before. So it seems that there is a pattern with the NNP administration and what is going on in the future, where they're just degrading, taking away some of our benefits or freedoms in smart, and we have to fight. And that's the reason where unionism comes in. Trade union is very, very important for our workers. Is
this the new frontier of the next revolution? Not one with guns, but one where we start speaking up and recognizing what our rights are and not relinquishing them?
Yes, and it is very correct here. One of the things we examine in Grenada, there are a lot of persons who are afraid to talk and to speak out because they're frightened what the politician is going to do me. Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to this, that, and the other? And they're afraid. And there are a lot of persons in Grenada who know better than that. They know the struggles of the working man, of the teachers, of the public officers, the police officers, whether high persons in society, and they toe a particular line and they remain silent while persons suffer. And so in the sense of it, they are as guilty in what is happening as everybody else. So what we want in our democratic society, no matter the consequences, you must never be afraid. You must once you're doing the thing right. We're not talking about guns. We're not talking about overthrowing any government. We're talking about a legitimate way of taking our action. And once you're doing something right, you must not be afraid or hesitate to speak out and to act for what you believe.
So there's a pension issue. 2 weeks ago, we heard a conversation and an announcement being made by one of the PS in health. I think it's Hannah, can't even give me her full name, St. Paul, I think, regarding that the regularization of a number of senior nurses, and some have looked at it and they start shaking it and saying, okay, that's quite interesting. Here we are, and now you're having a conversation about the regularization of nurses. What's the latest on the regularization of the teachers? Or is it something that is a glimmer of hope for the union? Or are you seeing it as more election gimmicks, smokescreen, trying to blind our eyes?
This is a topic that we must spend some time on here today. It is really sad for teachers who are crying. Teachers called me yesterday, day before, and other days, other times. They were really looking forward for the regularization and upgrades that the Prime Minister, the Minister of Education, and other persons in high authority in government promised teachers and public officers since in March. Right now we are in June, and up to today we cannot hear anything about regularization and upgrades. And it is really, really, really sad. You're talking about the nurses. The Grenada Union of Teachers have been speaking and advocating for nurses, for doctors, for teachers, for everybody in terms of regularization. The nurses were crying out. Even during COVID, they did a wonderful job. And here you're hearing now 40 nurses, just because of election, 40 nurses will be regularized. Where were them right before?
But some may say that's a step in the right direction, certainly.
Well, some may say, but what about the others? Are there only 40 nurses in Grenada? But what you're hearing, we haven't heard anything about the teachers. And I could tell you, the teachers are sad, they are mad, they are vexed. I don't know what word to use. Of course, teachers are angry. And you know what I would say? These are the very young teachers who have not been regularized, imagine, for 15 years. These are the teachers who voted for NNP in previous elections. And so they're so disheartened. They're disheartened and they are hot because what they say now is that the very government that they supported and voted for has now disappointed them and rejected them with broken promises for regularization and upgrades. About 400 and something teachers are still waiting. Now, let me go a little further. These are the teachers that prepared the children for exam for the CXC that was pushed back. The temporary teachers who work hard just as the permanent teachers. These are the teachers during COVID-19 that were going at home, taking the risks and reading lessons and things for students. These are the teachers that make sacrifices in spite of the heavy curriculum for CXC and CAPE and CPE, prepare the children adequately, the temporary teachers. And when they're looking they have given human service to the nation, to the school, to the job, and they're looking for their government, their Minister of Education, to do what they're supposed to do, to regularize, and you're not hearing anything. Let me go further. Hold on, just let me go further. Instead of that, on the political platform, what you heard, the Minister for Education now announcing that over 500 Imani's going to be regularized. Over 500. Now ask yourself the question. We're not against, because that's young people, that's Grenadian people. So we are thankful to God and happy for them. So let's make that clear. I don't want the nation believe or anybody believe we are against the Imanis and upgrades because they are our people too and they're entitled to work.
Right.
The inconsistency we've seen there is a political mockery, because what you're seeing is that the Minister of Education is not the Minister of Youth. Is not the Honorable Dr. Kate Mitchell and Kate Lewis that's supposed to be dealing. Remember, the Imanis are not established workers. That's a youth program for the Ministry of Youth, which the Honorable Prime Minister deals with, and the Honorable Kate Lewis, the Minister for Education, supposed to be dealing with teachers' matters. Years now, we have been dealing with temporary teachers, and that have not been fixed.
Has she lost her focus?
Well, she lost her focus because she's not supposed to be concentrating on somebody else's ministry and their work that they're supposed to do. So what we're seeing there, that is just a political move. The government making move wherever they feel they could get votes and they could get things. That's where they move. The same thing with the pension, the calculation. So anything that is good for their interest, and that is not a democracy, that is selfishness in a nation. And so what we're seeing there, even with DPA and the Public Service Commission, DPA has no interference in terms of Imanis. When you call DPA, they're telling you they're not finished with the process for regularizing teachers and nurses and other public officers yet, because they're dealing with the Imanis and they're dealing with other people. Remember, DPA deals with established the public service, and they have to regularize and spend time. They're spending so much time to dealing with looking how to upgrade and regularize Imanis that they can't even finish and do what they're supposed to do in the proper order of regularizing teachers and public officers. And it's a real shame. It is hurtful. It is a disappointment. And to go further, if it's that what is going on here, how can you honestly and sincerely expect now the teachers who are hurting, you never regularize them, you don't upgrade them, you keep them in the position, the nurses, the doctors, their families, their friends, persons in the diaspora who are related to them, to come in good faith and tell them to vote for you. How can you do that? It is unfair.
So the entire system is corrupt? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't want to use the word corrupt in the sense...
Malfunctioning then?
Yes, and it is not by an error or mistake. These things are well calculated. It's measures of interest, where the interest lies in terms of the politicians and the political interpretation. What seems to benefit them, that is selfishness. When you're serving in a society, is not what benefits you as the politician or the leader, but what benefits your followers, your workers, your everybody collectively together. So we're not against, and the Imanis should receive employment. We're not against that. But what we're saying at this time, the nurses, the doctors, the teachers, temporary for all this time, should be upgraded and should be regularized.
Let me just stop a bit, and because in having the conversation, there is emotions, and very often people some may appreciate the emotion and the passion that you speak with, and they may not get the true merit of the stress and the frustration of which you speak regarding teachers. And sometimes if you have to be close to those within the teaching fraternity to appreciate the workload that teachers, take for now exam time. A teacher in a secondary school, Jude, that has as teaching 3 subjects, that have to prepare exams, and all of these internal processes that have to be conducted on a daily basis. Do you really think? Do you get the impression that people understand, or is it that they think all the teacher does is go stand in front of a chalkboard, 2 o'clock they go home and that's it? But that's not even the tip of the iceberg, is it?
Yeah, they don't understand, but there are a lot of persons in society that appreciate the teacher. I could tell you that.
True.
There are a lot of parents who really do appreciate and they understand the sacrifices and the job that the teacher is doing. Not only that the teacher is doing a job, but the teacher basically in society, in every other job, the teacher prepares the prime minister, educates the clerk, educate the police officer, educate and prepare everybody else for society. So that is the main thing. The teacher basically goes beyond the call of duty in everything. There are some hidden work that the nation don't see and the society don't see. When persons are sleeping at night, the teacher is still up, making the aid, preparing lessons, doing all those things. While the teachers are in school, a child may get sick. We don't wait and say, call the parents to bring the child to the doctor. Do you know how many times I, as a teacher, principal and other principals and teachers have to go in the vehicle? We don't care about gas or what the case may be. We don't ask anybody for it back. And to bring a child in the hospital, to bring a child in the medical center, to bring a child there, to do this and the other. And teachers do it with grace, with great sacrifice and commitment. And not only that, the teachers have gone beyond the call of duty. Sometimes when you come home at your job at 4 o'clock, there are some teachers in the secondary school that are coming home 12 o'clock in the night, and nobody to accompany them. They're remaining in the school, teaching the children, helping them with the SBAs and doing all this other thing, especially in COVID, to bring them up, to lift them up, to prepare them for the exams. These are hidden things that nobody sees and appreciates. And when you do all that as a teacher, and know you the same person who did it, you can imagine a temporary teacher staying home or out of the home, the family, up to 12 o'clock in the night, 11 o'clock, for a whole year or years, preparing the children for CXC and all those things. And they did what they have to do, right and correct. And they waiting and expect regularization. And they're disappointed, nobody checking on them. Right about now, the government calling the nurses, they calling the imanes, they're still not even calling the name of the teachers. The teachers who making the sacrifice are everybody else. But a teacher called me yesterday, tell me she fall down on the ground. She fall. At first she thinking about the regularization and upgrade, and she so disappointed with the government who they supported and everything. She falls. She had to go by the doctor, get sick leave. Some teachers, they can't take it. Some teachers are crying and hurting together with public officers because they were really looking for the government to keep their promise to regularize. Why are we doing our people that? These are Grenadian people. When people come out away, whether on contract or what, we treat them so nice. We give them everything. Workers, whether nurses or doctors or teachers, we treat them nicely. Foreign people, and we don't take care of our own. This is a sort of slavery mentality that we have in Grenada, and we must break it. And unfortunately, politicians get away with it because our own people, while you're fighting for social and economic justice for us and for them, they cannot see it. So they see it as a threat, and sometimes they ridicule you, they humiliate you because you come and you're speaking in the general public about the things that is unjust and unfair, and you're trying to create a pathway for your teachers, for public officers, and for everybody else in Grenada. Because if the workers have it nice and everything, the family will have it nice, the society will extend to everybody and to make a way for the unborn, the younger people. That is what we're doing. So instead of that, people castigate us, they humiliate us. What do him again? What do her again? And why they make noise and they cannot see beyond what you are doing, not only for your teachers and your members, but for the society as a whole. And we must look at these things not in the eyes or in the prism of NNP, NDC, and that's where we fall in and we fail in, because the government, the smart politicians are smart. What they do, they divide and rule. So everything, they make it as if you speak up about regularization here today, they make the nation believe that you're against NNP. If you do that tomorrow, they make you feel you're against NDC, and they trap our people, and you cannot look beyond that. Let me say, whether it's NNP, or NDC, or any political party, I will do the same thing, the GOT will do the same thing, and all of us will fight for the benefits for women.
29 minutes gone past the hour of 9 o'clock this morning. My guest, Jude Bartholomew, President of the Grenada Union of Teachers. We'll take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back right here on To The Point.
COVID-19 is an infectious disease caused by a new coronavirus introduced to humans for the first time. It is spread from person to person, mainly through the droplets produced when an infected person speaks, coughs, or sneezes. These droplets can land in the mouths or noses of people who are nearby. These droplets are too heavy to travel far in the air. They only travel approximately 1 meter and quickly settle on surfaces. This is the reason person-to-person spread is happening mainly between close contacts. The exact time that the virus can survive on surfaces is not yet known. So it is wise to clean surfaces regularly, particularly in the vicinity of people infected with COVID-19. Hands touch many surfaces, which can be contaminated with the virus. You should therefore avoid touching your eyes, nose, or mouth, since contaminated hands can transfer the virus from the surface to yourself. When coughing or sneezing, cover your mouth and nose with the bend of your elbow or use a disposable tissue. If a tissue is used, discard it immediately into a closed bin. The most effective way to prevent the spread of the new coronavirus is to clean your hands frequently with an alcohol-based hand rub or soap and water. This will eliminate the virus if it is on your hands. Stay healthy and prevent the spread of COVID-19.
GBN Television News at 7, a pulse on all things Grenadian. Look out for our new features through expanded synergies with our media partners in Barbados, St. Lucia, Jamaica, Trinidad, and beyond. Capturing the latest in news, sports, weather, and entertainment. Credible, informative. Thank you for making us number one. News at 7, live, Monday to Friday on GBN Television, Channel 7 and 11. K105.5 and 105.9, Hot 98.5 and 98.7, GBN Television Facebook page and YouTube channel, and www.gbn.gd. GBN, with you anywhere and everywhere. Thank you. Welcome back to the program. 28 minutes on to the hour in the morning time. For those of you just joining us, my guest this morning is Jude Bartholomew, a president of the Grenada Union of Teachers. Jude, there's something that's referred. We all have a social contract with Grenada, with each other, and in order for the social contract to work, it means that each and every one of us must hold or honor our end of the bargain. So, governments, they're elected, and they're the stewards of the people. They are our stewards, and they're supposed to look out for our interests. And we, in turn, as the populace, we commit ourselves to productivity. But when that social contract is broken on either end, it creates a quagmire. Economic, social, mental quagmire. And we get in the sense that we are nearing that point. You're hearing about the frustrations, the concerns, teachers, other workers. And the question is, are we getting closer and closer to a crossroads in Grenada, Mr. Bartholomew?
Well, we reach a lot of persons, workers, and other persons in society reach breaking point. A lot of persons, sometimes you see people smiling and such, and you think, well, they're smiling because they're happy and such, because you know the negative connotation and the labeling in our society. if you cry or you bawl or you do those things, it shows a sort of level of weakness. And what you have sometimes in Grenada, a lot of people just kind of a face powder, kind of mask. They're suffering really deep in, and sometimes they don't even want to talk because they're afraid if they speak out and everything like that, so what they might face. The other thing is that we face here, too many times, we as a Grenadian people, we make the politicians feel as the assets in our country belongs to them. And that is what is happening here. The assets in our country and the resources belongs to us as taxpayers and the citizens. So when the politicians pave the road, they build bridges, they educate, they pay the teachers, they upgrade, they regularize. They are not doing us a favor. That is their responsibility. Unfortunately, what is happening to Grenada, we bring ourselves as citizens and people of our country that when the politicians give us a handout, when they pay us, when they do this and that, we make it feel as if they're doing something so extraordinary, but they're not doing. We elect them to do. That is their duty, so it's not a favor. And that is where we have to break from this mindset.
But would you also agree with me, Jude, that maybe we need to, a shift, a paradigm shift is required, because we make reference to handouts as though to suggest, if, let's assume, as you talk about a government, they're building roads, but it's not handouts, it is state funds. It is your money, my money, that's been used to finance, whether it's the seed program, whatever these social net, safety net programs are. They're not handouts. A handout is when I take money from my pocket and I give it to you. But that's not what's happening.
So what you see really happening.
So we need to change the way we think.
Yeah, the mindset of our people, because we have to ask ourselves, when we look at the resources that we have and the funds and where it is going in the direction, we have to ask ourselves, is it really going the places and the avenues that it needs to go? Or are politicians using it for their own, you may say, state, but personal interests to advance their cause?
Hold that thought for me. There's a caller on the line. Good morning, caller. You're alive.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yes, go ahead.
I've been listening to the program, the unions, over the years, let's say the last 2 years, and I get the impression, not just impression, but it's manifested to me that the unions are more talking of being bad, of having a position, but the action seems to be very, very benign and not forceful, as it was years ago. I remember Chester Humphrey. I was on the negotiating team for a short while, and Chester Humphrey had a problem with the breweries, and the entire country was shut down within a couple of weeks. Even buses were in solidarity. Even before that, Ms. Lorette Claxon and others, when there was a problem, the entire country was shut down. Or there was more stringent measures.
Okay.
But it seems to me that the president, although I understand the position, and I'm very sorry for his solidarity, it seems as though it's more talk, but little action. When they got their pay the last time, everybody seems to be back, cowardly and go back to school. If you have an issue, and I recognize they do, rally other forces, rally the buses, rally everybody, and let's talk in solidarity.
Okay, caller.
We are bigger than the government. Get the government to recognize the force of the people. And more than that, you have a just cause for it. Shut down the country if it calls for that.
Thank you,
but don't just be talking. We understand what you're saying, but we need to see some more action if you really want to move forward.
Okay, caller. Thank you.
That's my contribution.
Thank you. Jude?
I heard part of what the caller said there. I think he's making some good points.
More talk.
However,
Let's talk more action.
Yeah, you understand, but if you take action, you see how we have been talking and been reasonable, and sometimes the politicians don't come out and say, and the country, the society don't see how reasonable we are. Because even when you come out and talk, people say, well, you're talking too much. But if you go to take action and you strike and you do all those things and you shut down schools, the same people would call and say, well, you don't have a conscience how you could close down school for the very said children, and they would not look beyond what you're fighting for. And that is the problem with our society. that the caller talk about in the days of Chester Humphrey, how he used to shut down and everything and gets what he wants. Talk about the same Chester Humphrey now. He's against the very shutdown and the action that we're taking. And sometimes these people forget. And what you're seeing, a lot of the times, the very set people who are part of the trade union movement, who fell below the chalk, who sacrificed and they called in the name of union for the interests of workers, they reach in government and this side they know. They do all sort of things to criticize and to do all those things to the same union that they were claiming that they had a right to do. And this is a level of hypocrisy. And we're not hearing people like the Honorable Chester Humphrey and those people who used to lie down below chalk and who used to shut down country and do all those things to get what they want. And when you do the same thing and you decide to stand for your regularization and to stand for your pension, these are the persons who coming back now because they're in government and they enjoying the pie and they're getting what they want. They come back now and they degrade the same trade union movement that they had, the stepping stone to go there.
There's a caller. We have a caller. We have a caller on the line. Good morning, caller. You're in line.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, go ahead, please.
I'm calling to make a contribution. The caller who called just now, he touched a pin and I had to call. I could remember the same Chester Humphrey and Kit Mitchell and the high school children and public servants march to Mr. Blaze's office and break down Mr. Blaze's fencing and gate to get the money when he had to sell all the shares in cable and wireless to pay civil servants that we don't know say in there right now. Why the Canadian people don't get up now and magistrate and make Kit Mitchell pay the people their money? The money don't belong to he and he feel great that belongs to he for all what he done to the country before and he feel this trying. He have to go this round. That's my contribution.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, caller. Jude?
Well, I don't know who have to go and who don't have to go. That is not my domain. But I think what is happening here, one can see, is again, it's our people and what we accept. When we stand up for justice, and not everybody, not a lot of people that would have the courage to stand up to do what I do or what other persons are doing it. But if the same society who cry out and what is observed about our people, every time an election cycle comes for 4 years, all people, we make nice with ball, we say the pressure we have been going under, we talk about we weren't being properly paid, we had to magistrate, we talk about regularization and upgrades, the ordinary people talk about the benefits, bad roads, bad everything. And once election is called, and probably some nice things come before people, these all Grenadian people are very easy to forget. So we forgot about all the troubles and the pain, the humiliation, and all those things that we are going through by politicians and other people, and we just run in favor, and we do that and we make a mistake, and then we come back with a recurring decimal and get the same thing over and over and over again. There's something about the mindset of our people. And lastly to say,
before you do that though, there's a caller on the line that we need to we lost that one. We're keeping our eyes on the clock. 17 minutes onto the hour in the morning time. The number on the inside, 435-202041. The challenge that many... Okay, let's go straight to the telephone lines. Good morning, caller. You alive?
Good morning.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Mr. Jude, you are too good to remain there. You should be the leader of the country. Anyhow, I'm glad to hear that most people tend to support what you have said. I tend to support it too. Now, what you said, for example, even some teachers saying that you're talking too much. Even me, they tell me I'm talking too much because they don't hear it. I'm saying what they want to hear. And to some extent, I've been kept down by different governments in the early days. But I live up to see that I'm getting a pension. And my mind, what I have to say, I say it. But you are doing well. And I just the two last callers spoke and said that if you all are getting support from the population, the same people, when they get bribed, they don't care about the population. They care about themselves. Me first, me second, me third. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Jude, some have argued that we've established a partisan culture and it has become part of the fabric of our society. It has been interwoven, weaved over the last 30 years, and it has become who we are. And in order for us, because some of the argument you make it is that some of the very teachers of which you support and you're fighting for, they are the ones that somehow they seem to be in bed with the very arms that you're trying to get to yield to you.
I don't want to be misquoted there. I'm talking about the very in the sense, not the very teachers, but are saying there is a political divide, whether teachers, public officers, everybody, whether in unions, whether everybody has their own political affiliation. And you have to respect persons' right to whoever they support. However, I always say that when it comes to our benefits, politicians and government must come last. And that is the mistake that we are making in our country. If we support Party X, we don't want to press them too hard for our own benefits. If we support Party Y, we don't want to support them and press them too hard for our benefits. Let me say, what the politicians are doing is smartly dividing us for their own interests. Ask yourself the question, when the politicians go home, when they retire, you think they're pulling down the glass and they're doing everything with the window with a nice vehicle to come and give you a handout or give you something? No, they won't check on you anymore because they use us and they have already succeeded in what they want. They're going home in their retirement with everything nice for them, while we are the ones supporting them, running around, creating problems for our own benefits, and we are worse off. And that is the problem in Grenada. We must be pro-workers and pro our people, our society. We must fight together as a nation for what is right and what is just. And we must not put politics in front and politicians in front. The teachers, the public officers, the police officers, the prison officers, nurses, doctors, the ordinary citizens will always be there. The politicians come just for 2 years, they make fame and glory, and they go about the business. All people are too divided, and that is the weakness that the politicians are using to create divisions and problems with us. And let me further to say, we also have to blame trade unions here. They can be off the hook.
Before you get into the trade union, that's an excellent point you're making. You also want to engage the caller that is on the line. Good morning, caller.
Yes, good morning.
Yes, go ahead, please.
I must say that I am very impressed with the utterance of Jude Bartholomew. There is something I see. I have been a teacher. I worked in the education system for 43 years. And the problems that teachers and educators experience today, I never did. I kept to myself and I did what was right. And I had no respect for anybody in authority except they had respect for themselves. What I have noticed in Grenada is this. In the public sector, including teaching, political influence plays a great part. Politics in appointment, politics in promotion, politics here, there, and everywhere, sometimes ignoring the qualification of individuals. And I think this is the worst thing that can happen to divide workers in any country. The politicians play a role in appointment, in promotion, and otherwise. And so you cannot get the kind of solidarity you need to get because of the political divide.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jude?
Yes, and he's correct. I don't want to go down there, but what he says, nobody have to really add to it. The politics is killing education, it's killing the whole productive sector, it's killing everything. And give people a free chance to really be themselves and to really build a nation and such, and all those things, build that foundation for Grenada. When so much politics involved in everything, what we are doing, you're talking about no production, but you're killing our people and you're destroying our growth. And let's take, for example, that is hearsay. I do not have the facts, but I just saying hearsay. There are some workers who are temporary and indifferent, even some imanis and other workers who call all the time and they say, you know what, before the election they would get certain calls from certain people and threaten them and say, if you don't vote for me, then you're not going to get back your work. If you don't vote for me, and that is a strategic move by politicians and you'll say by government, by keeping our workers temporary because they know that they are vulnerable. When you have somebody in a temporary position and they're acting every 2 years, when election comes, unions. It depends on the mercy of the politicians. And when they tell you, they will try to force you and say, well, you have to vote for me to get back your work, You have to vote. If you don't vote for me, you don't get in a job. And these things go in the psyche of our people and sometimes cause them to do things, decisions that they're not going to make because all they're checking on is the job that they're going to lose because of a threat, and it is not true.
Jude, we were touching on. We started actually as to the role, and somebody, as they've asked the question as to whether or not the union, the trade movement on a whole, has lost its relevance, whether it has gone soft. Some have argued that the very challenge, the demise, the quagmire that you find yourself in, it has been wrought and brought upon the trade union by some of your very former members that got sold out. They sold Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. And some of your leaders, your trade unionists, your leaders, they've sold out their membership for I don't know how much. Is that a reasonable argument?
I'm not in a position to talk about sold out here, and I'll be out of place to talk about that. I don't know about that. But what I would say...
But certainly, I mean, yes, you can reasonably understand where the argument is coming from.
Yes, I see where you're going, and I will speak. So just I want the nation to hear me out. What we're seeing is a new set of trade challenges that is brought upon the labor force, the unions and those things. And it is not so easy to do challenges that we have not seen before. And a lot of these things basically are governments, they're changing the whole structure of everything for their advantage. And so trade unions have to rise up, strategize, come together, and new focus in terms of dealing with it. Let me say also, you have to blame trade unions too, and they may not like me for saying that and saying the truth. Some of our own people create our own problems. When you're dealing with this thing, and I don't want to say something else different, you have to be focused, you have to be straight, you have to be forward, you have to be above everything in terms of that. So when you're speaking for your workers and you're standing up, you know that nothing could hinder you in what a direction that we go. And I think one of the weakness with us is that in achieving things, we have to also blame our trade unions. Too much of division. Everything is a division, a political this and a political this, and we're not focused in terms of the workers for our benefits and for our Grenadian citizens. And when we overcome that, we'll be more successful because the government is smart. They know when we are divided. They know when we this and they know with that. And what they are using is using their forces and the influence to undermine, and that is playing our own weaknesses. And this is a big problem why some of us, we cannot achieve the things that we want to achieve. So it's not only the government there.
We have a caller that's on the line. Good morning, caller. You are live.
Thank you very much. Brother, I'm just calling back. Brother Jude, I heard your response to my comment. And I think that's the reason why, one of the reasons why you guys are not getting through. The same thing you said. If you shut down the country, if you do this, then this one is going to call and say this, and this one is going to say why you're taking this action, and the other one is going to lambaste you. That's the approach you guys are wrong with. And I think the government is looking at you and laughing at you guys. If you have a point of view, if you have a reason, and you do, then forget what other people are thinking. You have a cause. Listen, in addition to being on the negotiating team for a short time, I was a youth officer of the Public Workers Union. And when we had that problem with the same pension in the early 2000s, we went to several countries on conferences, and Ms. Clarkson stood up and stated the position of the Grenada public servants all over the Caribbean. So when we took action, there was solidarity all over the Caribbean. And no stones were left unturned. You guys have to stop thinking about what this one is going to think about, and what this one is going to react, and how the students are going to be taught. That's the responsibility of government. You want your money. They're not paying you. The courts, they pay you. Stop talking with due respect. Stop talking so much and plan strategic action.
Okay,
all right?
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, caller. Yes, Jude, go ahead.
Yeah, so Absolutely correct, and I would say here, put on record that the GOT is really tired with this sort of nonsense that is taking place with our pension. There is no negotiation with pension. It is an absolutely right by the courts, and that is what we want. And so we're saying to the government without any doubt that they should move expeditiously in paying our retirees and new pensioners their pension. We're not making joke for regular, and we'll take action. We have to take action, and we will take action for this regularization and this upgrades and those things. And I'm calling on not only teachers and public officers, but friends and families of all those workers and persons who are suffering. Because when we don't get our upgrades, they deny us of our financial resources. Our people suffer, the whole nation, our friends, everybody suffer. So basically, our votes are important. And if you have a government who in power, I'm disrespecting you, not upgrading you, not regularizing you, not doing all those things, then how in conscience you can go and vote for them, because they are not our friends. If they were our friends and they're concerned about us, then they would have upgrade and regularize us. So it is a very important decision making, and for our workers and for the whole society. We cannot continue to take this sort of nonsense and this sort of disrespect and slavery mentality in our country. So we call in our teachers, public officers, the parents, family, right through the nation to think about what we are saying today. Enough is enough, and the consciousness must be raised in our nation and in our society to rise up, not rise up with guns and everything like that. So, but you have your vote, which is your right, and you must be able to use it wisely and effectively for our interest and your interest and the interest of your future generation and the nation to come. And that is the sort of action that teachers will take. Teachers will take action, because enough is enough. Whether it's before election, whether it's after, whatever, but we will take action. We tired with this kind of nonsense, this sort of humiliation and disgrace and disrespect by the Ministry of Education, by the government of Grenada towards our teachers. And we're calling on the government of Grenada to regularize and upgrade our temporary and other workers and nurses and doctors and everybody else included before this election. Before we start with this mamagism and those things, and to pay our pension. That is what we're calling for.
The final word there from President of the Grenada Union of Teachers: enough is enough, and they're calling upon the administration to fulfill their obligations and provide them that which is they're entitled to under the law. That's where we leave the conversation today on To The Point. Indeed, I want to say thanks to Jude Bartholomew, President of the Grenada Union of Teachers, and we certainly encourage you to do what you have to do as you continue your fight for your members. Grenada, this is where the conversation ends for today. This is the final To The Point for today. Certainly we say thank you for being part of the conversation all week. As we get into the weekend, we want to encourage you to do what you have to do. Continue to be productive as best as you can. Be safe. Continue to do what you do. JC loves you. Until then, have yourself a great one. Take care, Grenada.